Hi and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast, another Authors Tuesday. So today I'm delighted to be joined by a couple from Texas, two authors as well. So it's Jim and Jib and Wasserman. I hope I haven't messed up your name.
Okay.
so so it's it's great to welcome you both along. I know you've been in a TV show with Ricky Gervais. That's brilliant. We'll talk about that a little bit. So it's great to welcome you both on. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we might start the show off if you wouldn't mind telling a little bit about both of you and how you became authors. It'd be a great place to start.
Well, you want to
You
start?
know about this book, right?
Yeah.
For this particular book, it just coming. We have a series of hardship since 2020, starting with my dad was sick in Thailand and then passed away last May, to be exact, a year ago. That was ending up with some complication. I think this book is our effort to bring something positive. And it's kind of like the back cover of the book. It's no mud, no lotus. It's something beautiful can come out from adversity in life. So this is just summing up the project of this book. And if you want to add anything.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, let me take a step back. Jib and I'm a retired attorney and teacher, and Jib from Thailand is a retired bank executive, which means she earned the money in the marriage, and I added the little colorful flavor now and then. And
Yeah.
we're both retired. And when we retired, we decided to, rather than sit around being bored, take up writing. Plus, I found out the cats can't hold up their end of the conversation sitting around the house. So we started writing. And the first area we wrote in is education, how to teach kids about making good choices,
Right.
uh, a field that's fancily called behavioral economics.
Hmm.
But now with this book, we decided to, instead of writing to teachers and parents how to do it, we decided to write to the kids directly in the form of stories.
Mm, right. Yeah. That's brilliant. Like to kind of help children in your with your work. That's absolutely brilliant, Jim and Jim. That's great. Great. Because you mentioned on your bio as well about like the experience you had during your surgery. I suppose how did that um your perspective of life in your storytelling how did that influence your perspective in life with your storytelling?
Well, you know, I guess if one thing, if I can generalize, one thing Texans and I guess Irish have in common is there's always two or three stories you can add to explain something. And so I've always been known to have a story.
Yeah.
And when I had my surgery, it was surprise surgery, and I had to spend 3 months at home recuperating. And there was no one for me to tell stories to, which probably was the hardest part.
Yeah.
So I started digging around some of my old notes and files and talking to Jib, and we decided we wanted to focus on positive,
Yeah.
see a way through it. As Jib said, we had some trials and tribulations aside from the surgery. And so whenever we felt down, we started telling each other stories, remembering back, and that's how the stories came about. Um, and we did focus. Both of us have a interest in Eastern philosophy and thought. I studied and taught it. Jib lived it the first,
Mhm.
and so we kind of went back to that as our source for storytelling.
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's brilliant because like judging by what you told me in your bio, like it was a really tough struggle, and it's great that, like you said in the beginning, that from adversity, such positive work came. So that's amazing, and thanks a lot for sharing your story with everybody. And would you mind maybe showing your books you have, and maybe giving it the names of them as well for people that are watching on YouTube and listening? That post is very
Okay.
good in the back, yeah. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
the it's called Mini Rafts, and we took the title from something that the Buddha said that he talked about something called yana, which is our vehicles. When we come to in life, we keep coming to rivers that we have to cross, either as a challenge or a transition to the next stage of life. And how do we find the right raft for getting across the turbulent waters? So these are 8 stories, and each one involves a different culture. One is Japanese, one is Korean, Cambodian, and each one is about a young person having a challenge and how they overcame it with a different mindset or practice. And Jib needs to tell you about the covers because among Jib's many talents, she's also the artist who designed this. So
Wow. Go on. That's
go
great.
ahead,
Yeah.
deal with the back.
You want to, okay. So the front just showing two kids in the raft and just facing together into the unknown. It's just really transitional, like either go to the next destination or overcome the next challenge. And then the
Brilliant.
back is just lotus in the murky water. It just signify no mud, no lotus, which is coined by Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Just saying something beautiful can arise from difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the 2 kids in the raft are
Oh,
actually our niece and nephew who live in Bangkok.
Wow. Great.
And so
Yeah.
one of the stories, actually the first story we wrote was inspired by them. We decided to write a story about them, and that was the first one. And after we did that, we kept going.
call about the niece and nephew is called the sound of one twin laughing.
Right. That's brilliant. Yeah, I love the illustrations. Yeah, absolutely brilliant, brilliant. Would you like to maybe read an abstract from it? Would be great if you wouldn't mind maybe reading a little bit from it, so to give people a taste of what to expect. Would be brilliant,
Right.
Okay, you want to pick?
please.
Sure. Well, here's one. Um, we could start one of the first stories. Um, it's called Ruts and Roots. And it starts off with a young girl, and her name is Bao Hua, and that is a Chinese name. Actually, again, we one of the things we did is when we wrote the stories, we have many friends here who are from different cultures, and we have them read and suggest names and give us cultural aspects. So let me read this real quickly.
Brilliant. Yeah.
People were always tell People were always talking to Bao Hua about her mind. Mind where you run, said her teacher. Make up your mind, said the checkout lady at the store. Do you mind? Asked a man she bumped into by accident. Bao, however, wasn't sure exactly what a mind was. Where was it? How could she control it? Was it like her hand, where she could move it around, carry and drop things with it as she wished? She had never given her mind any thought. You seem to have a lot of things on your mind, Bao, her mom said as Bao picked at her plate of Kung Pao chicken. Bao wasn't sure what that meant either. She thought about it as she used her chopsticks to separate the chicken. There was no reason to do that except it gave her hand something to do while she thought. How can things be on my mind? Were these things heavy? Did these things squish her mind? Maybe that's why she felt kind of love. So that's just a short opening, that she has many things on her mind that are weighing on her, and she's not sure, but her one escape in the world is she speaks with her grandfather and they do gardening together. And he tells her a good technique of gardening is to always make sure when you water plants, you water the plants and not the weeds. Water the plants you want.
Mm.
And she learns how to water the good ideas in her mind and weed the bad ones out.
I love
So
that. That's
that's a little
brilliant.
excerpt.
Yeah. Because I love that was really, really good. Thanks a lot for sharing that. That's great, Jim and Jib. Great, great work. But what I love that is the way you have the two meanings of mind. That's
Yes.
great. Like, my, that's great because, like a lot of, um, could I say like comedians use that as well. The different two different words for different meanings. Because as you know, comedy is great for getting anybody's interest.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm a frustrated stand-up comic. One of the reasons is because I'm kind of short, so no one knows I'm standing up when I tell jokes. But the other thing is that
Yeah.
my students, whenever I taught them, they would all be, and if you said they were all comics, and if you said a word like mind, they would take it every different way,
Yeah.
and so you get inspired by it.
Right. That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah. That's absolutely brilliant. Excuse me. And what age group, excuse me, sorry, what age group are the books targeted at?
Well, we wrote it mainly for what we call middle age, somewhere about 10, yeah, it's about 7 or 8 to 12. We figure that's the time when kids start, mom and dad start letting go of your hand and you start exploring the world on your own.
Yeah.
And you start at school figuring out not everyone's good at everything and how do you face these challenges.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. No,
So.
that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. And can I just ask you as well, what do you hope young readers and their families will take away from your stories, and how do you envision their lessons being applied in their everyday lives? It's probably a question to these both.
Yeah, what do you think?
So I hope they enjoy reading the story, first of all, and engage or at least feel connected to the characters.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I think sometimes we read the story, we can connect to some of the characters in the book that, oh, that sounds like me. And maybe they find some insight or something that like the problem that the character face in the book. Maybe they see themselves in it, and then they see a different way of thinking.
Mhm.
Mm,
Maybe that just show it to them. Oh, I never see it in that way, or there's a new light shining on the problem, and that hopefully that help them think in a new way, solve the problem. And we also add reflection and questions in the back with each story
right.
that if parents read with them, it's something they can discuss together.
Mm,
So I hope that they could use that to the parent would use that to their advantage to discuss the story, and that if there's particular cultures or point that they want to know more, for example, I'm using Filipino kapwa, and if they want to know more about kapwa, which is about community, they could maybe even look up and do some research. And maybe Filipino American that born here never heard of it, and they want to look more and learn about their ancestor culture. They can look up, and so that's what I hope is that it
right.
pique their interest. It
Yeah.
gives their a new way of thinking, a new way to solve the problem, and maybe they see some of themselves in the story.
Yeah.
That's brilliant,
And
Jib.
you?
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jim hit it that, you know, we all develop, especially in middle school, tools for meeting challenges. I have
Hmm.
a friend, a fellow teacher, who says when we're all stressed, doesn't matter how old we are, we all go back to our sixth grade self.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'll use cheap jokes to get out of trouble. Back. But so in some ways, what we're trying to do is provide new tools for kids that, especially kids growing up in the West, um, some tools that they've used in the East, meditation or going into oneself to overcome challenges. And then, as Jim said, some things that are old but repackaged, like finding strength in community. The Filipino culture calls it kapwa. Um, in Japan, looking for a way to find a harmonious resolution to a disagreement is called giri. And so when kids read that, they can think, well, maybe I can use that. And most of the problems in this, they may sound foreign and exotic, but they're very familiar. For example, there's one about martial arts in Cambodia, but it's really about peer pressure, about what's the right thing to do when doing a sport.
Mhm.
With
And yeah, and like in sport, like we call it sandbagging. Do you want to compete in a lower level so we guarantee to win, or we want to compete at a higher level that challenge and stretch ourselves a bit more?
right,
So that there's a choices to make there in the story.
We were actually approached by one publisher, I believe in Manchester, um, who does story therapy, where they have kids who are having trouble with issues, social issues, read stories, and then are asked how do they relate to the characters. So we went with another publisher, but there's no reason the stories can't be used in that way as well. Say, what did you think? And a lot of times that's a better approach for parents to do with their children
Yeah.
than saying, you should do this.
Mhm. Yeah, because what springs to mind there, because I work a bit with metaphors where we like metaphors or stories, but you don't explain it. They take what the meaning out of themselves. So
Right.
excuse me, that's my what I hear from it there. So that's really good. And then I love the aspect we were saying there about choices. It's better to have lots of choice than no choice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's great messages in your books. Well done.
Yeah, and kids will be surprised because unfortunately, a lot of Eastern philosophy, I grew up with movies where everything was in this mystic cloud, and whenever they presented Eastern thought, it was all this mystical stuff with complex language. It's really a lot of similar thought.
Yeah.
And so, for example, one of our stories is a kid who just takes a nature hike and gets back to seeing how everything sort of flows in a creek and a river. And it's an introduction to Taoism, but who hasn't just wanted to take a walk and get away and clear one's mind and
Yeah.
see that
Exactly. Yeah.
in the big scheme of things, one's problems may actually be small.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. Thanks very much. That's brilliant. Um, can I just I noticed as well what you said in your bio is your first kind of foray in writing fiction. Um, what were the challenges did you face in in this transition, and what did you enjoy most about writing fiction? To use both.
Well, I mean, I could tell I have five previous books, two with Jib, that are nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I can tell you singularly, my biggest problem is turning the teacher in me off. In fact, we have two sons, and whenever we went on vacation, they had this signal, time out, you're lecturing. If I start saying, there's an interesting history here, we had a whole family revolt in Germany one time. So my biggest problem is to not lay it out and say one, two, three, but just say, here's an easy way, go soft. So, what about you?
And the challenge for me is, I think fiction is easier because you don't have to, what do you call reference? Like you don't have to have provide an expert whenever you quote something or whenever you use some data, some study to support your analysis. Is that you have to supply the study or information.
Mm,
Here you just get to make up,
yeah.
kind of to make up. It's really where you want to go, really.
Hmm.
I mean, yes, we have to look up some cultural references to make sure it's correct. But other than that, I think it's just imagination flow. Just let it go. So
Well, and let it go, let the story kind of take us in many
yeah,
times.
yeah,
With a lesson as a teacher, you're always having to guide it. You're
Hmm.
sort of keeping the rails and making it. But in a story, at some point, it kind of takes
it
on a
kind of
life,
takes off. Yeah.
yeah, life of its own, and you kind of let it go.
Yeah, that's great because
And then,
yeah,
yeah, it's brilliant when you're surprised. Like I didn't think the story would go there, and I'm the one writing
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
You find that the characters kind of have their own kind of they have their own way they go. It's fascinating, really, the way it works, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you ask, where did that come from?
yeah,
You sit there and you type and you have this big dramatic moment, and then you sort of look at each other as, where did that come from? So,
great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's brilliant. Can I just ask us as well about the reality TV you mentioned as well? With Ricky Gervais, that must have been really exciting. When he's done that, would you like to talk about that a little bit, please?
sure. It was a reality show called The Marriage Ref. And the premise of the show was that ordinary people who had a marital disagreement, went in front of a panel of not experts, but celebrities. And then you also competed against other couples. And they actually, we saw a notice in the paper that they were interviewing people here in Dallas, couples. So we piled the kids in the car and said, let's drive down. It'll be a fun afternoon. And on the way down, we had to think of, well, what do we want to disagree about? So we
Yeah.
decided one, because you it had to be something real, and that is, I love my in-laws, I love my mother-in-law, but when she comes to visit from Thailand, she stays for 6 months, and she starts changing everything in the house, dinner time, food, and she breaks things. So we talked about that, and we did it. It was a lark. We thought we wouldn't hear anything more, and next thing we knew, we were on the road to it and flown up to New York City, where our panel was Ricky Gervais, Jerry Seinfeld, and Julianne Moore.
Wow.
And we got to do a day of taping up there and competing. And the bonus was we just went up there because we love being up there. And there was a competition to decide. There were three couples of the six people who was the rightest of the right. And I'll let Jim tell you who won that of the six people competing.
So there's three couples, and then for each couple, they get voted who's the right between the two.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess the three top finalists got to have to be voted by the audience.
Okay.
Who's the rightest of the right, and the audience have voted me the rightest of the right. So we won.
Jim won.
Oh, you won. No.
I won yes,
Jim
Brilliant.
won the grand prize.
grand prize.
Oh,
So,
brilliant. Yeah.
and then we got to hang with and talk with Ricky Gervais. And I will say this about reality shows. A lot of the fun is what happens between the filming. Ricky is
Yeah.
genuinely a very funny guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, they would have to edit a lot of stuff. They did.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was grand. They were all grand, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds like great bit of crack, as we say in Ireland. Great fun. Yeah, great stuff. Brilliant. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So if any more shows coming up, let me know and I'll put them on the show notes, the links to them, you know?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, we still get a note or see that our show is up on YouTube. We got some notices that it was going around in Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, in Australia,
Recently shown in Australia.
and I saw some comments, so I logged in, said, "I'm the Jim Wasserman." They went, "Oh no!" and they all wanted to ask. So, yeah,
Brilliant. Well done. That's great. Great
our
story.
15 minutes. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And where do you find the best ways to kind of advertise your book? Where can people get their hands on your book?
Well, we it's on Amazon
Yeah.
and other quality sites on a computer near you. Um, our publisher is actually a small world out of London, CAAB Publishing, and very indebted to them. And they have a number of, I believe, sites there. Such it's on Apple. Uh,
Apple book, they can get it
yeah, Apple
there.
Books there, but you can go to the CAAB, think of cab with an extra A, publishing site and find it there, if not Amazon.
Amazon for sure.
Yes, if you look up Mini Rafts
Right.
is the name.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Because brilliant. And you want to share the links to your brilliant. And you want to share the links. I'll put them on the show notes for people to
Okay.
buy them as
Yes,
Yeah,
well.
we'll
That'd be
send you
great.
the link.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
absolutely.
Great.
So, and
And
you may see us walking around a bit. We're coming to London and going back and forth
oh, great.
all this summer and fall. So if you see me, I'll have a free copy for you if you come up to me.
Oh, thank you. Great stuff. And can I just ask as well, do your books, do you have any books in any of the bookshops, local bookshops? Because, you know, a lot of people like to have the hard copy, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
old fashioned.
We don't have any up. in the UK right now or in Ireland. Um, uh, I'll send you the link of where they do, of where they will, where
Right.
CAAB
Yeah.
will be posting it there.
Mm.
If not, ring me up and maybe when I'm over there, I'll deliver one to someone's house.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can have.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to do. Yeah,
Brilliant. You've been doing a lot of
we can have
traveling
a
there.
pint
Yeah.
and a book.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And can I ask you as well, as someone with a diverse background, including British and Thai influences, how do you think your personal experience have shaped the themes and messages in your stories?
Oh well, this one really, Jim, about how has your personal experiences? I mean, you coming from Thailand shaped.
Like the book.
Yeah.
Um,
And the messages in your stories, really. Yeah.
well, I think I'll just give you example. For example, one of the story, like Mr. Chong's team, um, like when Jim first wrote it, and the kid kind of disrespectful to Mr. Chong, and I would kind of say in the Asian culture that would never happen. You would never be showing, you would never uh talk back in that tone of voice or being rude to something like older persons like that. So that's one thing I could think of. And then what else?
Two worlds.
And then just living in two worlds, different culture. For example, one of the Filipino girls, she's lived in California, and but she's born in California. She's basically American, but having to understand the culture of her parents. So I can relate to that because I mainly I live in the United States longer than Thailand.
Yeah.
So when I go back to Thailand, I'm not sure I'm Thai enough, but I'm definitely don't look American, like typical American here.
Mm.
So it sometimes I'm not sure, like who
Yeah.
am I?
Mhm.
Yeah, caught in the two world.
And I'll tell you, you don't think of uh, you know, the UK and the States as being that much different. But I distinctly remember because my mom is was from London,
Yeah.
uh, from she was an East Ender from Stepney, by the way. And
Yeah.
when I was in first grade, we were spelling things, and I spelled color COLOUR, and the teacher said that's not correct. And I said, well, my mom says it's correct. And the teacher said, then your mom is wrong. And I started crying because you don't tell a first grader,
Yeah.
you don't tell me
Exactly.
my mom is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I was teased because, I mean, I'm down here in Texas and I'm saying banana rather than banana.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
so, there are certain things. And
Yeah.
if we have time, can I share one quick? Because I grew up with British expressions and within a Texas world. So I would say things with the Texas accent like, I'll have your guts for garters. And people had no idea what I was saying. But the first time I went back to the UK on my own, I used to go back and forth as a kid, but the first time I did a walkabout on my own, I was 19 and I called my mom and said, back in the States, I said, Mom, I'm up in Newcastle and I want you to know I did it. And she said, Did what? She said, Well, before I came up here, I bought a bag of charcoal and I've carried it with me so I can finally say, after all these years, I carried coals to Newcastle.
Yeah. Brilliant.
My mom just said, "My child is an idiot." There you go. It is different for people who grew up, in one world but surrounded by another.
Hmm.
And how do you stand astride and blend the two so you get the best of both?
Yeah, yeah, great. No, that's a brilliant answer. Thanks so much. No, I really appreciate you both coming on today to the podcast, and I wish you all the success going forward with all you do, with your great work in your books, and uh,
Thank you.
and definitely I'm going to share all the links for people to check out and buy them books. Yeah, so
Yes, yes.
yeah, so thanks very much and all the best to you both, Jib and Jim. Uh,
Thank you.
Mark,
Wasserman. Yeah, brilliant. Okay,
Absolutely a pleasure. And I look forward to having a Guinness with you there when we come back around.
right. Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Mark's motivational podcast, another Authors Tuesday. So I'm going to share all the links to their book. So make sure you have a look. Okay, take care and tune in next one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Mark here. Thank you for watching another episode of my Authors Tuesday podcast. I recently published a book of children's stories called The Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends. The book began life as bedtime stories I wrote for my own children. If you'd like to purchase my book, follow the link in the description box below. By buying my book, you are also supporting my podcast series for authors, which is giving a voice to writers in Ireland and across the world.